Lost is finally back on Netflix after a long absence, giving a new generation of binge viewers the chance to finally experience one of the greatest TV dramas of all time in full. Debates still rage about whether it stuck the landing in its final season, but it's impossible to deny how compelling Lost was on a weekly basis. It had relatable characters and compelling mysteries that kept people theorizing and coming back every week. It's no secret that many of these mysteries were left only partially resolved or unresolved entirely, and your mileage may vary on whether this was a positive or negative. Maybe the most open-ended mystery of them all was one of the earliest raised. To this day, fans remained perplexed by a string of 6 numbers, 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, and 42, that kept popping up throughout the series. Today, we're breaking down the numbers in Lost, where they manifested, and what they ultimately meant, if anything. Hurley believed the numbers were cursed. The numbers were first introduced in the first season's 18th episode, Numbers, which focused primarily on Hurley, the immensely underrated Jorge Garcia, arguably the heart of the entire series. Flashbacks reveal that shortly before the plane crash, Hurley had won the lottery with the numbers 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, and 42, but a string of misfortunes followed him almost immediately after. His grandfather died from a heart attack, the priest overseeing the funeral got struck by lightning, his mother's house caught on fire, and Hurley got arrested on false charges. It's then revealed that Hurley had once stayed in a mental asylum, where one of his fellow patients, Lenny, would repeatedly mutter the numbers to himself. We can thus deduce that Hurley picked those numbers for the lottery because they were so fresh in his mind. Desperate for answers after his stretch of bad luck, Hurley visits Lenny, demanding to know what the numbers mean, and Lenny tells him to speak to a man named Sam Toomey in Australia. The island. He and the survivors encounter Danielle Rousseau, a scientist who crashed on the island 16 years before, but Hurley finds documents of hers that repeat the numbers endlessly. When he confronts her about it, Rousseau admits that the transmission of the numbers brought her to the island, much like they inadvertently brought Hurley, and she becomes convinced that they're cursed as well. While the fellow survivors try to reason with Hurley and convince him that he's in charge of making his own luck, later seasons would test this claim even further. What did the numbers in Lost mean? The numbers get even more focus in Lost's second season, but while they filled in a few answers viewers were looking for, they also only raised further questions. Season 2 introduces the Swan, a scientific lab installed on the island by the Dharma Initiative, where the survivors meet Desmond Hume, who is in charge of operating the station. His work involves inputting a code every 108 minutes to contain the island's electromagnetic energy, and the code, fittingly, is 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42. Intriguingly, 108 is the sum of the combined 6 numbers. Why these numbers specifically were needed to contain the electromagnetism is never outright answered in the show, but a bit of explanation was given in an online alternate reality game, which played out between the second and third seasons. This game, The Lost Experience, detailed the fictional Valenzetti equation, which was believed to accurately predict the date humanity goes extinct. The 6 coefficients the equation formulated were, you guessed it, the 6 numbers. According to The Lost Experience, the Dharma Initiative's objective in working on the island was to find a way to change the equation's factors and delay the apocalypse. But the most important appearance of the numbers comes in the show's final season, which explores the centuries-long conflict between the island's protector, Jacob, and his brother, the Man in Black. Knowing his nemesis planned to kill him and escape to the larger world, Jacob realized he had to appoint a successor, building a lighthouse to observe each of his potential candidates. Each number on the lighthouse's dial corresponded with a different candidate's name, and the show's 6 most important characters matched up with, you guessed it, the 6 numbers. John Locke was candidate number 4, Hurley was number 8, Sawyer was number 15, Saeed was number 16, Jack was number 23, And Jean was #42. From the beginning, Lost explored the conflict between fate versus free will, landing somewhere in the middle for most of its run, but the final season shifted heavily in the direction of fate. If the numbers never had a literal explanation, their constant reappearances throughout the show, even before the plane crash, suggest that Jacob's 6 main candidates were always destined to come to the island. Or it could just be mere coincidence. In his final conversation with the survivors, Jacob asserts that they're just numbers. The numbers still spark debate with Lost fans, much like several other long-standing mysteries Lost raised. The numbers were only ever given a partial explanation and were mostly left open to interpretation. Maybe they were factors in a scientific equation used to predict humanity's destruction. Perhaps they were a mark of destiny for the island's most important survivors. Maybe they were bad juju. Or, at the end of the day, maybe they were meaningless numbers. And whether you think the show's open-endedness worked or not, it's a testament to how much it engaged its audience week after week that, even today, we're still debating what the numbers actually mean. Lost is now streaming on Netflix.